You are listening, right? Just pause for a brief second. Look around the room you are in at this very moment. It is quite comfortable, isn't it? You have the warmth of a well-built house, surrounded by all the modern conveniences that life in a developed Western society can provide. Outside your window, the world is likely rushing by, cars speeding down the streets, people caught up in a never-ending race against time. Yet inside your space, the silence is so heavy that the rhythmic, indifferent ticking of the wall clock feels amplified. Maybe you can see the late afternoon sun casting long, pale shadows across your furniture, those familiar objects that seem to be keeping you company in their own quiet way. Then right out of nowhere, a cold, sharp question hits you. It is the kind of question you have probably been trying to run away from for a long time. Why is it that inside this house, where you want for nothing materially, a deep, hollow ache of emptiness feels so overwhelming? Why does this invisible weight of isolation press down on your chest, even though on paper your life looks complete and secure? It is a painful, raw truth that our modern, fast-paced world likes to sweep under the rug. Society loves to tell us that if you are lonely, it is simply because you are physically alone, because you lack social circles or need to get out more. But you and I know better. We know that the most terrifying kind of loneliness in the autumn of life has nothing to do with an empty room. It is something much more exhausting. It is the feeling of being surrounded by people, your adult children, your neighbors, your acquaintances, and realizing that not a single soul truly connects with your inner world. You speak, but the words just bounce off the surface. You show up, but nobody really sees the quiet vulnerabilities or the deep thoughts you carry inside. It is the profound isolation of being lost in a crowd, living in a world that is hyper-connected by technology but completely fractured in spirit. Think about those days when you mindlessly scroll through your phone contacts or look at your social media feed, only to realize how empty it all feels. The polite small talk, the superficial chats about the weather, financial markets, or material things do absolutely nothing to quench that deep thirst for genuine understanding. You find yourself longing for a real bond, a kindred spirit who can sit comfortably with your silences and share reflections on life without any pretense, without forcing you to put on a brave face or play a role. If you are feeling that weight right now, if your heart feels heavy with the unique ache of ex-ichio loneliness, I want to extend a gentle, comforting embrace to you. Your feelings are completely valid. They are not something to be ashamed of or hidden away. They deserve to be acknowledged and met with deep tenderness. In our conversation today, I'm not going to give you hollow advice. I'm not here to tell you to force yourself out the door, to join noisy clubs you do not care for, or to collect superficial acquaintances just to kill time. We both know those are just temporary painkillers. Once they wear off, the loneliness returns, often with a much fiercer sting. Instead, let us just sit here together quietly and without any rush. We are going to explore a profound emotional shift inspired by the gentle teachings of our beloved Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh. It is the simple practice of returning home to yourself, of awakening and transforming your own inner energy. What does this actually mean? It means that when you learn how to make your own internal energy peaceful, stable, and deeply aware, that peace naturally begins to act like an invisible, powerful magnet. Without you having to beg or plead, it draws aligned souls toward you, a true, mindful companion for this stage of life. You do not need to chase after the world. You simply need to come back and tend to the garden of your own soul, and the blossoms will naturally welcome the bees. We will walk through this together, step by step, so you can bring this beautiful transformation into the fabric of your daily life. Let us look into a mirror together, a mirror that reflects the unvarnished realities of daily life that you or those around you face every single day. I want to share these thoughts with the utmost respect and deepest empathy for your generation, those navigating the years between 50 and 80, who have spent a lifetime giving everything to their families and society, only to find themselves standing before a vast, quiet expanse. Consider the first scenario, which is so common in our modern industrial world, especially across communities in the United States. It is the reality of parents living far away from their children. You spent decades pouring your heart into raising them. You remember every tear, every milestone, the chaotic noise of a house filled with youth. But eventually, as life demands, those young birds grow up and fly away to build their own nests. They get swept up in the high-pressure demands of careers, relationships, and their own children. Suddenly you are dealing with a massive gap. It is not just the physical distance of having them live multiple states or thousands of miles away. The deeper, more painful distance is the shift in lifestyle and generation. Your children are immersed in a hyper-efficient, practical world. When you do manage to get them on the phone, the call is often brief, filled with rushed apologies. "Mum, Dad, I'm right in the middle of something. I have a meeting coming up. I need to pick up the kids. Let me call you back later." Then the line goes dead, leaving you with nothing but a quiet sigh in an empty room. You understand them, of course. You do not hold a grudge, because you know how relentless life out there can be. Yet, in the quiet spaces of your mind, you cannot stop that sudden wave of vulnerability from creeping in. You feel like a bystander in the lives of the very people you gave your youth to create. That emptiness, that lack of deep, unhurried conversation feels like a slow, dull ache that makes the days feel longer than they are. Then turn your gaze to another picture, one colored by loss and profound transition. This is the path of those who have had to say a final goodbye to their life partner. The person who walked alongside you through all the storms and triumphs of youth, the one who knew your every quirk, your favorite habits, and your unspoken fears, is suddenly gone. You walk into the kitchen and the chair across the table is completely empty. There is no one sitting there to share the evening meal, no one to gently tease you about making the tea too strong or to remind you to take your medicine. When night falls and you lie down, the vast coolness of the other side of the bed serves as a sharp reminder that you are navigating this chapter alone. The grief of losing a spouse is not just about missing their physical presence, it is the total collapse of a decades-long shared rhythm. You feel disoriented, like a ship whose anchor has suddenly snapped, drifting in a vast ocean with no clear shore. Every corner of the house holds a memory, and every memory has the power to bring a quiet tear down a face lined with the beautiful marks of time. Yet, there is a third reality, one that feels completely contradictory, but is incredibly real for so many of you. It is the situation where you do not isolate yourself at all. You make an effort to go out. You attend senior community centers, local gatherings, group trips, or lively social dinners. You dress up, you smile, you participate in small talk about the news, grandchildren, or community gossip. But right there, in the very middle of all that laughter and chatter, an overwhelming wave of loneliness hits you. You look around the table and realize that while everyone is talking, their minds are somewhere else. The interactions stay entirely on the surface. There is no real listening, no deep vulnerability. When the event ends and you unlock your front door, entering your quiet home, the contrast hits you like a splash of cold water. You realize that trying to force yourself into spaces where your soul does not feel met only makes the internal void feel wider and more hollow. All of these moments point to a shared human experience, the feeling of being left behind by a world that is moving too fast. Technology changes overnight, social values shift, and it feels as though no one has the patience to slow down, to truly listen to the deep wisdom of an elder, or to understand the fears and reflections that come with a long life. This kind of loneliness stops being a temporary mood. It becomes a heavy grey fog that settles over your days, making everything look a little dimmer. It makes you wonder if these years are destined to be defined by quiet sadness. Is there anyone left who can truly see you and walk this path with you? To find a sustainable way through this pain, We have to look through the lens of gentle awareness and honest reflection. We need to dismantle the root cause of this modern epidemic. Why is it that in a world bursting with communication tools, where reaching someone takes a fraction of a second, so many older adults feel a profound sense of isolation? Why does the frantic search for companionship so often end in deeper frustration? Let us look at the structure of our modern, utility-driven society. When a culture values people primarily for their productivity, efficiency, and economic output, human relationships naturally start to mimic those transactional patterns. People unconsciously evaluate connections based on mutual benefit, shared status, or simply how well another person can help them pass the time. When you are younger, working, and holding a certain position in the world, your circle is naturally populated. But the moment retirement arrives, when the professional titles drop away and you are no longer producing direct material wealth for the system, that crowd thins out remarkably fast. It is a harsh reality of a transactional world. People are preoccupied with their own goals, and they feel they lack the capacity for connections that do not offer an immediate practical return. When you look for deep friendship in that kind of environment, among people who are themselves exhausted by the daily grind, you often receive nothing but superficial politeness. But that is only the external piece of the puzzle. There is a much more critical, internal pattern that we must look at with complete honesty. It is perhaps the most common emotional misunderstanding we fall into when loneliness strikes, approaching the world from a place of deep emotional starvation. When the emptiness feels unbearable, it is natural to go out into the world desperately craving affection, reassurance, or attention. Without realizing it, we walk out with the energy of a beggar. We beg for a phone call, we plead for a visit, we tie our happiness entirely to the condition that someone must sit and talk with us for our suffering to ease. If we look at this through the lens of energy and mindfulness, carrying a baseline of lack inside means we project a heavy, demanding frequency outward. Anyone who steps into your space will unconsciously feel a subtle pressure. They feel a heavy responsibility to make you happy, as if they are required to carry the weight of your sorrow. Human nature naturally recoils from energy that feels draining or demanding. Paradoxically, that intense longing for connection becomes the very force that pushes people away. The more you chase, the further they step back. The tighter you try to hold on, the more they look for an exit. This drops you right back into a painful cycle of effort, rejection, and wounded pride. Listen closely to how Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh speaks to this exact human struggle. He gently reminds us that our deepest loneliness is not actually caused by our children being busy, or neighbors being cold, or society forgetting about us. Loneliness is the desperate cry of the inner child within your own soul, a child that has been abandoned by no one else but you. Yes, we are often the ones who walk away from ourselves. When a quiet afternoon stretches before us, instead of coming home to tend to our minds, soothe our bodies, and listen to our own hurts, we immediately sprint away from ourselves. We turn on the television, immerse ourselves in social media, or call someone up for superficial gossip just to escape our own presence. We let our minds wander back to the past to indulge in regret, or we launch into the future to drown in anxiety. We neglect the physical body that has carried us for decades, and we let toxic, anxious thoughts accumulate without ever cleaning house. If you cannot stand to be in your own company, if you look inside yourself and see nothing but an unlit, anxious void, how can you expect someone else to journey in there and keep you company? How can another person settle into a soul that its own owner is constantly running away from? This is the root of the problem, and it is the very first knot we must untangle if we want to change the narrative of our later years. Now that we have traced this suffering back to its origin, let us move past theory. Right here, in this very moment, as you listen to my voice, I want you to join me in making a small internal shift. This is not a complicated mental exercise. It is a beautifully simple practice of immediate transformation, anchored deeply in the mindfulness tradition of Plum Village. I want to invite you to let go of whatever thoughts are spinning in your head right now. Just let them drop for a second. Adjust your posture wherever you are sitting. Make it comfortable, stable, yet completely free of tension. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Soften the tiny muscles around your eyes. Let your forehead smooth out and rest your hands gently on your lap. Now let us turn our attention completely inward, arriving at the natural flow of your breath. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, feeling the cool air fill your chest and expand your abdomen. Then let it out completely, an unhurried release through your mouth or nose, feeling your body sink into a state of deep relaxation. Let us breathe together with a completely fresh perspective. As you inhale, gently say to yourself, breathing in, I am aware that the feeling of loneliness is present in me. That is it. You do not need to fight it. You do not need to turn on the television to drown it out. And you do not need to fantasize about someone calling you to fix it. You just name it with complete honesty. Breathing in, I see you, my loneliness. And as you let that breath go, allow a soft, gentle smile to rest on your lips and say, breathing out, I hold my loneliness with tenderness. Can you feel the profound shift in this approach? Instead of treating loneliness as an enemy you have to conquer or a defect you need to scrub away, you are enveloping it in the warm, soothing energy of pure awareness. Imagine your loneliness as a tiny, frightened infant crying because it feels lost and unprotected. Your mindful awareness is the loving, patient mother who steps into the room, gently scoops the baby up, and presses it against her warm chest. The mother does not yell at the baby for crying. She simply offers her absolute presence and warmth. When you breathe and cradle your loneliness like that, you will notice the tight constriction in your chest begin to soften. The chaotic thoughts begin to settle. The feeling of isolation might still be there, but it loses its sharp, monstrous edge because it is being held by something much larger, your own peace. Thich Nhat Hanh taught us that when you can sit completely still by yourself, looking directly at your loneliness without panicking or desperately grasping for external distractions, you have begun the sacred work of self-healing. You stop operating as an emotional beggar. You reclaim your sovereignty, your stability, and your home. A quiet joy that does not rely on anyone else begins to rise from within your own being. The exact moment your energy shifts from a place of desperate need to a baseline of self-contained peace, you alter your entire resonance. This stable, grounded peace begins to radiate outward, steady and clear, like the subtle fragrance of a lotus flower. By the natural laws of alignment, that clean, unattached frequency is precisely what will draw similar, mindful souls into your life. You will attract friendships that are not based on mutual dependency or trauma bonding, but on a shared capacity to honor and elevate the deep peace of living. To see exactly how this looks when it plays out in the real world, I want to share a story about a man whose journey of transformation I had the privilege of witnessing closely. His name is John, and at 65 years old, he lives in a quiet, tree-lined suburb in Ohio. For most of his life, John was the quintessential modern professional. He was a highly successful engineer, pouring all his vitality, focus, and years of youth into his career building financial security. However, when he hit 61, the structure of his life fractured completely. He officially retired, and almost simultaneously, his marriage of nearly 30 years ended in a painful, quiet divorce that had been brewing under the surface for a long time. His 2 children were fully grown, completely absorbed in their own careers and families on the West Coast, thousands of miles away. Overnight, John went from a life of packed schedules, corporate meetings, and constant interaction to a massive, deafening silence. He found himself entirely alone in a spacious 2-story house where the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. For the first 2 years, John fell into a heavy, dark depression, completely consumed by the sharp ache of late-life isolation. Terrified of the silence, he tried to force connections by any means necessary. He created profiles on every social platform, signed up for every local senior organization, joined golf leagues, chess clubs, and neighborhood walking groups. He tried so hard to make friends, filling his weekends with dinners and drinks with anyone who was available. Yet, John kept running into a heartbreaking wall after every single gathering, after hours of listening to superficial chatter about money, material possessions, or people complaining about their kids. He would walk back into his empty house, feeling even more depleted and misunderstood. The relationships felt completely hollow. His intense anxiety about being lonely made him hypersensitive. He would feel deeply slighted if someone didn't reply to a text quickly, and that heavy, attached energy unconsciously made people keep their distance. The turning point came when John stumbled upon some online recorded talks by Thich Nhat Hanh. The simple, crystalline wisdom of those words felt like cool water on a feverish brow. John woke up to his pattern. He made a radical decision to completely stop chasing external connections. He committed to the practice of coming home to himself. Every morning, instead of checking his phone for messages with an anxious heart, he sat in absolute stillness, breathing with his loneliness, learning to hold it like a mother holds a child. He turned his everyday routine into a series of beautiful meditations. He began to deeply clean his house. He spent hours tending to a small garden in the backyard, planting rose bushes and watching the soil turn over. When he made a cup of tea, he gave it his absolute presence, watching the steam rise, tasting the warmth, staying completely anchored in the now without a single thought given to the past or the future. A quiet miracle occurred. As he learned to be his own best friend, to genuinely enjoy the stillness of his home, the desperation evaporated. It was replaced by a vibrant, independent peace. Then, beautifully and without any forced effort, the law of alignment took care of the rest. One evening, as John was practicing walking meditation, just taking slow, deliberate, peaceful steps down his driveway, a serene smile on his face, he crossed paths with a neighbor from down the street named Robert, a 68-year-old man who also lived alone. Robert noticed the extraordinary stillness in John's posture, the rare quality of peace radiating from his face, and he stopped to say hello. They struck up a conversation, and it turned out that Robert was also on a quiet path of self-reflection and inner work. A friendship grew between them, but it was entirely different from anything John had experienced in his younger years. They didn't feel the need to go to loud venues or fill the space with endless small talk. Their bond was built on absolute presence. On many afternoons, Robert would come over, and the two men would simply sit on the porch, together in total silence, sipping warm tea, watching the sun slowly dip below the horizon. Not a word had to be spoken, yet there was a deep, unspoken current of understanding flowing between them. They held space for each other's spiritual journeys, shared insights from their practices, and helped each other dissolve negative thought patterns. John had found a true mindful companion, a relationship of immense quality and endurance, born not from begging, but from inner fullness. Seeing how John transformed his life shows us that while attracting a true friend is a beautiful gift, knowing how to nurture that connection so it stays pure, unaffected by the heavy, transactional habits of the world, requires an even deeper emotional understanding. I want to expand on this by exploring two of the most powerful communication practices in the mindfulness tradition, two invaluable tools taught by Plum Village, the practice of loving speech and deep listening. Let us first look at the art of loving speech, the practice of using words that carry the capacity to heal, comfort, and nourish. We must be completely honest here. As we grow older, it is incredibly easy to fall into unconscious negative speech patterns. Because of unresolved disappointments from our past, or simply because of the persistent physical aches and limitations that come with age, we can develop a habit of grumbling, critiquing, or projecting a heavy cloud of complaints whenever we interact with others. When someone calls or visits, we might spend the first hour listing every single ailment in our bodies, dwelling on the shortcomings of our children, bitter about the state of the world, or expressing sharp irritation about the younger generation. My friend, if we constantly use our words in this manner, we are running a small factory of heavy, toxic energy. No one, not even the most patient friend, can thrive in an environment where every conversation leaves them feeling emotionally weighed down and exhausted. The emotional secret is simple. Before you speak, pause for a single breath. Use your awareness to check if what you are about to say contains the seeds of encouragement, joy, gratitude, or kindness. Learn to speak words of authentic appreciation. Share things that elevate the space. Instead of complaining about your stiff joints, talk about how grateful you are for the beautiful morning light and how much you appreciate your friend taking the time to sit with you. When your words flow like a cool, refreshing spring, anyone who steps into your presence will feel naturally safe, light, and deeply at peace, and they will naturally look forward to returning to your side. Alongside this, the second vital tool for sustaining a deep, lifelong friendship is the art of deep listening. Thich Nhat Hanh defined this as listening with compassion, listening with one sole, pure intention, to give the human being in front of you a safe space to empty their heart of its burdens, sorrows, and anxieties. When your mindful companion is speaking, sharing their vulnerabilities or fears, practice the art of total inner and outer silence. Lay down your ego. Drop the immediate urge to interrupt them just to showcase your own life experience. Stop judging whether they are right or wrong, and above all, resist the urge to offer unsolicited advice or preach to them. Most of the time, people do not need a financial advisor or a life coach to tell them what to do. What they desperately crave is a sanctuary, a spacious, steady soul that can hold their story without judgment. When you listen with absolute presence, your eyes reflecting deep empathy, your mind completely anchored right there with them rather than drifting to your own concerns, you are offering the most precious gift a human being can give, your true presence. You become a peaceful oasis, a sturdy harbor where your friend can anchor their ship during a storm. A connection built on the twin pillars of loving speech and deep listening will never have room for cold isolation. It will naturally deepen into a sacred, life-giving partnership that elevates both of your spirits. As our conversation deepens and our minds settle into this quiet space, I want to invite you to step onto a higher plane of awareness. Let us enter the heart of spiritual insight, lifting our reflection today to a universal truth that offers ultimate liberation for the soul as we navigate the realities of aging, the profound concept of interbeing. What does interbeing actually mean? In the simple crystalline language of Thich Nhat Hanh, interbeing means that nothing can exist by itself alone. Everything has to interbe with everything else. The one contains the all. This is because that is. He famously used the example of a simple flower to illustrate this. When you look deeply into a flower, you see that it is not a separate, independent object. A flower is entirely made of non-flower elements. If you look closely, you see the sunlight shining inside it. You see the cloud that brought the rain to quench its thirst. You see the earth that fed it nutrients and the gardener who planted the seed. If you remove the sunlight, the flower vanishes. If you take away the cloud, the flower cannot be. Therefore, the flower and the sun, the flower and the cloud, inter-are. They are present within each other, they cannot be separated. Now take that beautiful, profound lens and turn it toward your own life, toward the very loneliness you feel. Why do you feel isolated? Under the light of spiritual wisdom, loneliness is ultimately an illusion of the mind, the mistaken belief that you are a completely isolated fragment, a separate I dropped into a cold universe, disconnected from everything else. But when you look with the eyes of interbeing, a breathtaking reality unfolds. You realize that you are your children, and your children are your true continuation. Even if they are thousands of miles away, caught up in their own hurried lives, they are carrying you in every cell, every strand of DNA, every gesture, and every value they hold. You have never been separate from them, and they have never truly left you because you are both waves in the same continuous river of life. Furthermore, when you take a walk in a park and look at a flowing river, a vibrant blade of green grass, or even the smile of a stranger passing by, if your awareness is awake, you will see your own presence reflected in the entire tapestry of life. You are an inseparable part of this immense universe. You interbe with every living thing, sustained every second by the air you inhale, the water you drink, and the warm sunlight touching your skin. When this understanding illuminates your heart, the artificial boundary between the me inside and the world outside completely dissolves. You stop viewing yourself as a vulnerable, forgotten individual left behind in a quiet room. You realize you are never alone because you are beautifully interwoven with the entire cosmos in this very breath. Viewed through this sacred spiritual lens, aging completely loses its association with decay, helplessness, or the fearful passive waiting for the end. Instead, these years reveal themselves as the most magnificent golden season of human life. This is the period where you finally possess the maturity, the rich life experience, and the unhurried time to return home and touch true liberation of the soul. You are like a brilliant autumn leaf on a majestic tree. That leaf does not weep or tremble when the autumn wind arrives because it knows its true nature. It understands deeply that letting go of the branch and falling to the earth is not a death. It is a beautiful return to the source, dissolving into the soil to nourish the tree so new buds can burst forth next spring. This insight of no birth and no death brings absolute freedom. It allows you to welcome the natural cycles of life with a serene smile, turning your later years into a beautiful, triumphant celebration of peace. My dear friends and companions on this journey, our shared time of unhurried reflection is slowly drawing to its natural close. We have journeyed through many emotional landscapes today, from the raw, tender acknowledgement of the loneliness that can haunt our later years to the deep realization of how a fast-paced, practical world amplifies that void. We have practiced shifting our inner state through the gentle power of the breath, and we have elevated our perspective through the timeless wisdom of interbeing. As we pack up these thoughts, I want to leave you with one core truth to anchor in your heart, a gentle reminder to carry with you through every morning and evening of the years ahead. To find a true companion in this world, you must first learn the art of being a true companion to yourself. Never rush out into a hurried world with an anxious, empty heart, begging for validation or company. Come home first. Use your breath to quiet the storm, sweep out the anxious thoughts, and cradle your vulnerabilities with absolute love. When your inner house is full of stability, clarity, and genuine peace, life has a beautiful way of organizing the right, meaningful connections for you. From the very depth of my soul, I want to offer each of you, every beautiful spirit sitting quietly before a screen somewhere in the world, my warmest, most heartfelt wishes. May each step you take upon this earth feel steady and grounded. May your breath grow deeper and more serene with each passing day. And may your heart find complete freedom, remaining beautifully undisturbed by the passing of time or the autumn winds of life. You are a magnificent expression of this universe. Allow yourself to live these years with the absolute dignity and peace you deserve. Before we part, I want to invite you into a simple, mindful action. If, during our time together, you felt the space around you soften, if your breath became a little smoother, or if the heavy constriction in your chest eased even a fraction, please leave a simple lotus flower symbol in the comments below. Let that flower be more than a character on a screen. Let it be a quiet, sacred nod of recognition to the thousands of other mindful souls who are sitting right here with you, breathing the same air, cultivating the same peace across oceans and continents. We may be physically distant, but we are beautifully aligned in spirit. If your heart feels moved, subscribe to this space and turn on the notifications. Do not view it as a subscription to a digital channel, but as a gentle commitment to yourself, a daily appointment to pause, breathe, and return home. We will continue to walk this path together, sharing insights and holding space, so we can navigate these golden years with awareness, grace, and an abundance of love. Thank you for your absolute presence today. Breathe easy, and I look forward to meeting you again in our next quiet space of peace.